Here's why 99.9% of music producers fail. If you don't know me, I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. I need you guys to smash that like button. I cut my hair off. It's time to get serious. So I want to thank you guys. And if you don't know me, again, I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. We trained over 1 million producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Redd, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Glorilla. We have 3 confirmed Grammy winners and multi-platinum plaque winners. After training so many producers, I see the same thing. Hey, Game, I can't get feedback. Nobody's responding to my feedback in the feedback thread of our Discord, which is at discord.gg/BusyWorksBeats. We're the #1 Discord in the world for music producers. Shout out to you guys for making that happen. And as a reward, I said, because you guys took us that far, I gave away a free EQ and a free tape emulation plugin. Just go to BusyWorksBeats.com/EQ because tonight I'm pulling those links down. If I remember. Hopefully I do remember. And you guys get that for free. In the sampler plugin, we gave away a whole sampler plugin full of sounds. Just go to BusyWorksBeats.com/sampler. If I remember, I'll link it below, but I'm probably going to forget. And, I see these complaints. Hey, I'm not getting feedback. Nobody's responding to my thing. I get DMs. Hey, go comment on my post. Go share my thing. But people don't realize this one simple principle is you have to give way more than you receive if you want to actually create what's called momentum. And here's the science behind it. When you give, think of your business, your music business, like a farm. And in order to have plants, you have to have seeds. There's a famous phrase from Hermes Trismegistus, I believe, in the Pymander, if you guys read some older books. And it says, every seed doesn't turn into a tree, but every tree came from a seed. In other words, the law of probability says, which is the law of the universe, says that you will have to put out and scatter. The same way Jesus said, fish with a net. You know why? Because if you're sitting out throwing one line at a time and you're sitting there trying to reel a fish in, you might miss. Now you got to do it again. Okay, now you got one fish. Okay, but then you do it again, miss. Do it again, fail. Do it again, fail. 10 more times. Then you throw it out a 12th time. Boom, you reel it in and you got another fish. But that's 2 out of 12. He said, why not just throw a net? Meaning, why don't you just cast out multiple points, multiple touch points? Okay, cast multiple points out so that your probability is greater in getting the result that you actually want. So that's the mindset that we have to step into. And a lot of producers haven't been taught this principle. So I'm not here to make you feel shame. I'm here to actually enlighten you to how the universe works, quite literally. So think of it this way. A current event right now is the Strait of Hormuz is basically being blocked by a certain country. I believe it's Iran specifically. Now, that's called a bottleneck, meaning that one person controls one point that holds up everybody. Okay, that's called a bottleneck in a system. So if I'm the creator of the universe, would I leave it up to one person to hold up my expansion? So think about this way. You have a point, a singular point that wants to expand. Okay, whether in and of itself or however it expands, the balance of the universe is shifting. Okay, if you think about it, of the yin and the yang. And if I'm expanding and one person holds up my expansion, we're removing the cog in the machine and replacing it with something else. In other words, we can't hold back how the universe wants to expand itself. That's just a principle of the universe. It wants to expand. I think there's even a biblical principle that says, be fruitful and multiply. Sorry, y'all, my Wi-Fi is like tripping. I got to get a USB 3. I know. I ran out of ports on my Mac Mini. So, hey, we got to deal with it. But it says be fruitful and multiply, meaning we need to expand. Okay. In our nature, there is a desire to expand. Where do you think we got that from? Okay. We love growth. Even billionaires love to see growth. It's about growth. It's not about a money. It's not about it's not about a number. It's about seeing and feeling the growth. That's what excites entrepreneurs, billionaires, even people who start from the beginning. There's a reason why we have serial entrepreneurs, people who keep starting over and over and over again. It's because they love the rush of growing from 0 to 1. Billionaires just love the growth of going from 1 billion to 1 billion and 1 million. That's how they love their growth. So it's just we are focused on expansion. So think of it this way. If I'm the universe and I say, okay, my goal is to expand, but then I have a bottleneck, meaning a person or a piece of the process that is being held up and not creating a flow, it needs to be removed. In other words, think of your kitchen sink, for example. I have an ocean amount of water to pour into the kitchen sink, but the problem is the drain is this big. Okay. So if I pour an ocean, let's just make it simple, a swimming pool's amount of water into the sink, it's going to overflow. And that's actually poor systems design, okay, is to have bottlenecks. So what do I need to do? I need to expand the drain. I need to expand the ability to have things pass through. Okay, that is what producers need. You need to expand the ability for things to pass through. And the way we do this is by priming the pump. Okay, so this is a principle of, I guess, pipe design or plumbing. I'm not sure exactly the field this is used in specifically. I learned this in college some years ago. But it's in business, you have to prime the pump. In, waterworks, you have to prime the pump. Meaning if you want water out of the ground, you have to first create some, what's the phrase in physics? An object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. Okay, knowing that, if I have water in the ground that's way underground, okay, it's not going to just send itself up the pipe. I have to add a force for that motion to begin. And this is what producers are skipping. They want all the water at the bottom of the well, but they don't want to actually put in the force it takes to prime the pump, to actually create the pressure for the water to come up the pipe. Okay. And this is the concept of giving. The reason giving is so important is because, one, it says to give freely. That's what the actual definition of giving is. I gave freely. The EQ, thebusyworkspeech.com/EQ. There's a principle in the Bible. Leave the edges of your field as, I think they call it song. Let me get the exact word here. All right, so the phrase is leave the edges of your field as alms for the poor folks, for the marginalized, for the foreigners. The reason we do this is, think about back in the day. I'm not trying to take us on too deep of a tangent here, but you just have to understand the principle. Back in the day, all we had was land. The only way to get more land was to either conquer somebody else's land or just discover new land. But what happens if all the land is acquired by somebody? And now we have all these extra people who have no purpose because they don't have their own land. So they go work for the people who have the land. But the issue is not everybody gets hired. Okay. And you still have to have a profit, a profit from your harvest. So long story short, they would have their workers on the field that they owned. And they would say, hey, workers, leave the edges of the field. Don't reap those. Don't harvest those. Leave that for the people who can't afford to be working here or can't afford to buy the stuff from us, our surplus. Leave it for them. And they can pick up your scraps that you drop on the field, and they can go eat from the corners of the field so that everybody is in balance. That's the key, is to keep everybody in balance. So I'm not trying to take us on a deep societal rabbit hole, but my point in saying this is that leaving alms, giving, okay, is a principle of the universe. It's just the probability to prime that pump. It's all about probability. Okay. So if you say, hey, I want to work with Dr. Dre. Well, you live in Nebraska. So first of all, you're in a state where you will never run across Dr. Dre in Nebraska naturally at the grocery store, at the mall. You won't run into him at the local studio, chances are. Now, if you just fly yourself over to Los Angeles, you are increasing the probability of your goal actually happening. That's the magic of casting a net. It's increasing the probability of your desired outcome. And this is the part that nobody wants to do. They don't want to actually do the thing that increases their probability of something happening. For example, if you want a placement, what happens if you just do 100 days of sending out your loops to your Discord for free and telling everybody on your Instagram page, comment the word loop to get my Dropbox loop pack that has 100 loops. I'm going to be doing this for 100 days straight. Okay. So all you got to do is comment the word loop using the app called ManyChat. Now you have thousands of producers engaging with your content, and they get access to something for free. You don't have any expectations. You don't say, hey guys, when you get this placement, you owe me 50% because it's the copyright law and you need to be giving me. It's because that's not giving. You're not giving anything for free. Giving is truly giving something without expectation of a return. And the reason you do that is to prime the pump, the universal pump, because now you can create flow. Okay. You got to prime the pump to create flow. The reason you want flow is because now your job is to keep expanding that metaphorical drain. So like I said, if I'm trying to dump a pool's worth of water into the kitchen sink and the drain is this small, the problem is the drain is this small. So we have to enlighten ourselves. We have to grow in technologies. We have to expand our businesses so that the drain gets bigger and bigger. We have to become teachable. Yeah, we can receive customers, but we can receive the revenue from customers, but can we offer the customer support to keep that balance? That's the part that nobody focuses on. is, yes, I primed the pump. I'm getting the water into my metaphorical sink, but I'm not expanding the actual drain in the sink. Therefore, there's going to be flooding. I haven't focused on customer service. I haven't systematized my marketing approach. Therefore, when you scale, when you expand, there's going to be issues. Yeah, it might work with 2 or 10 people because what is the biblical phrase? Certain people won't go to heaven because they can't fit through the eye of a needle or something like that. Forgive me, I'm butchering that one terribly. So that's not on my memory is hard. Okay, but what happens if that door expands and gets bigger? Now more people can go through that specific door. So all I want to say to you guys is what I see with 99.9 and even audio companies, this isn't specific to music producers. They want to expand their own self-interest without expanding somebody else's self-interest. And that egoistic, self-focused approach to music production, to music business is what keeps you stuck. The drain will stay this size because you're not creating a system to have things flow. Okay, you have to create flow. And the way you create flow is priming the pump. Nobody wants to prime the pump. All it takes is a little bit of force, a little bit of effort, okay, to get that flow going. But everybody wants to receive the well at the bottom of the, underground well, but they don't actually want to, again, like I said, prime the pump, add that force. Remember, an object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. One of the laws of the universe, laws of physics. You can't get something to move if you're not willing to move it. It's not going to magically just come to you. And this universe is also based on the law of probability. So again, like I said, with the guy in Nebraska, he wants an opportunity, but he doesn't want to leave his house. He doesn't want to network. He doesn't want to talk to anybody that's even remotely close to the actual target he's trying to approach. Okay. And I don't mean you guys have to move to LA and fly to LA. That's not what I mean. I mean, you need to think of it in that way. If I'm a guy in Nebraska looking for Chris Brown, is Chris Brown in Nebraska? No. Okay. He's probably in LA, the music city of America. So in that case, I need to get in proximity. Now, just because I go to LA does not mean I'm going to magically stumble upon Chris Brown. Now, a quick story is I went to LA to source clothes material, and I went to LA for, it was a seminar. And I think it was Frank Kern and this other guy, Jason Capital's seminar, which Dan Pena actually pulled up to, funny enough. And then Frank Kern didn't show up. But I went there for Frank Kern. Long story short, went to this LA conference. And why am I going blank? Give me a second, guys. Oh, my bad, y'all. I just had like 10 memories at once, and I was trying to sort through the memories. So me and my friend went to Panera Bread. That's what it was. And I was just chilling, sitting there, made my little small order, and they start waving over to somebody, and I turn my head, and it's Jake Paul. This is Jake Paul before he was like, boxer Jake Paul and all this. This is just Jake Paul from YouTube Jake Paul. But I'm like, this is LA. We're just casually seeing Jake Paul going to a Panera Bread and just casually bouncing out. And he waved back because he knew the person. So that was kind of strange to me, where literally just being in proximity of stuff at a random Panera Bread. We didn't go to some special event where it was like, VIP. It was just random at a Panera Bread. And that's what I mean by when you increase the probability of something happening, it has greater odds of happening. The same way, going back to the principle, every seed doesn't turn into a tree, but every tree comes from a seed. There's a principle also, I believe Jesus teaches this, where it says, don't uproot the tree. It says, don't destroy the tree. Don't destroy the thing you've been building or something that's not working. It says, dig around the tree and add fertilizer. Why do we add fertilizer? It's because usually when trees stagnate, it's because they lack nutrients. They lack the water. And let me explain quickly. I'm not going to get too deep into biology here, but the way a tree works is this. You plant a seed into a ground. That seed then uses water that it has around it and the apical meristem, okay, and different things about a seed. I'm not going to get too deep. To seek out nutrients in the ground to build its root system, okay? So people think water goes into the seed and that magically does something. Water's job in the ground is to go out and find nutrients for the roots, okay? So it's a messenger. It goes out into the ground, it finds nutrients, and it pulls the phosphorus, the nitrogen, the carbon, the sulfur, whatever the plant needs specifically. It pulls that into the root system, and the roots are like mouths for the plant, basically. So it can absorb these nutrients. And as we get these nutrients, we begin different building processes within the seed. And now we can go upward, following the apical meristem to the sunlight, okay, because plants use sun to actually guide where they grow. Long story. But my point is, there's a reason why all these things exist. And fertilizer, what it does is, let's assume the water source has gone and the roots become stagnated. There's no more messenger to go get the nutrients. So what did Jesus say? It says, dig around the tree, clean out that root system. Even sometimes just dig the dirt up around the tree and add fertilizer. Now the root system probably doesn't get touched in that process, but some people might actually hit some of the roots, but it's okay. Now there may be some loss. Okay. But in the process of adding fertilizer, what the fertilizer does is it adds the nutrients back to the ground. That's the thing that's the thing that the tree needs to grow. Okay. So it says, don't destroy the tree because it's not growing. It says, add the stuff that makes it grow. What came before the seed growing? The seed doesn't grow by itself. It's a balance act of chemicals. Okay. So it needs to be a trade-off happening. And this is, again, the principle that I want to introduce to producers, because I see a lot of people giving up because they're not seeing results. It's not that your thing that you're building is not worth building. It's because you're not adding the elements that you need to actually grow. For example, everybody wants to go straight to melodies. Well, did you learn chords yet? You can't really go to melodies without chords. Here's a ninth chord, for example. What if I said add the 10th, which is a raised third? Now that chord became very melodic very easily. What if I said add a dominant chord to add a turnaround tension energy? Because people keep saying they can't arrange. But what if I said arrangement is about musical energy? It's not just about which reverse riser sound you have or how many bars in a hook. That's not what moves the energy of a song. Then I say, okay, add the dominant. That's the turnaround energy. Now back to the tonic. Okay, so there's a science about movement in music. And without understanding the principles like harmony, for example, they want to hop straight to melodies and go to making metro boom and melodies at level 1. You skip the level. First of all, they skip level 1. They skip level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then they want to jump straight to level 10. And it's just like that tree. I think even in the Bible, it talks about, Jesus gives a parable about seeds being cast out into different areas. Just somebody threw seeds. One seed landed in the soil and it became a plant. Another seed landed on a rock. It got plucked up by the enemy. Another seed grew in the soil and it got strangled by weeds. Another seed, I forget the other seed. Another seed, a bird came by, flew and ate it. Okay, I'm not sure where the other seed went exactly. Somebody in the comments will let me know. And the point of that parable is to say, if we don't have the proper foundation, we cannot grow. And there's a system of growing. And going back to the earlier concept of every seed every seed does not turn into a tree, but every tree comes from a seed. Now the seed, if you pay attention, the seed that went into the dirt and the soil that had the nutrients, that's the seed that grew up into a plant. Okay. And that is the seed that followed the principles of the universe, whereas every other seed tried to thwart the process. And as a beginner, as a level 1, people think they're in the soil. They think they have the foundation because they watch one YouTube video about FL Studio something. Okay. But they're really the seed on the rock. Okay. That actually gets plucked up by the enemy. And then they get discouraged and they stop. Or they're the seed in the ground that has a little bit of information that isn't really the foundational information, the foundational education. Sorry, y'all. The webcam's glitching, y'all. It's the Wi-Fi. All right. So they may be the seed who gets the information from, any channel, thinks they're growing as a plant, but they don't have the actual foundational education, the understanding, the foundation, the understanding. Understand means to have a foundation because you're standing under something. That's the part they don't have. And so when they grow up from their level 1, they think they're on level 5. They're really on level 1.5. And then they get strangled by weeds. They get distracted by the fact that they're not growing fast enough, or they can't do what their friend does, or something in life distracts them. But they don't realize it's because they haven't focused on the nutrients. What is the actual fundamental block you need to actually build the thing? For example, I can't make a Chick-fil-A sandwich with peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't matter how hard I try. There's no, unless you have some kind of alchemical process, there is no way to make a Chick-fil-A sandwich with peanut butter and jelly. So when you watch a video on YouTube that says, hey guys, here's how to make peanut butter and jelly, then you think you have the ingredients to make Chick-fil-A. That's the problem. That's the disconnect. We haven't gone all the way back to the source material, the source ingredients. We haven't gotten the chicken. We haven't even understood what a pickle is. We haven't understood what the frying process. We skip all the steps to get to where we're trying to go. And I just want to encourage music producers. Yes, 99.999% of producers fail because of this principle, which is they don't prime the pump. Okay, they don't actually give first so that they can receive. And when they receive, they don't even try to expand the drain, metaphorically speaking, so that they can keep the flow going. And that's the process I'm saying. In the beginning, you're going to have to give something. There has to be a trade-off of energy. The universe works off of balance. There is no thing that's actually free. It costs something. Every breath out costs a breath in. Okay. Even on a cellular level, energy costs movement of ions. I'm not going to get too deep down that rabbit hole because even I would have to restudy that stuff. But everything is a balance. And when you truly understand that everything is at balance and there has to be a trade-off for whatever it is you want. If you want to acquire that thing way over there, well, guess what? There has to be an equal and opposite trade-off for that thing. So if your goal is to learn music production so you can produce for Metro Boomin and Murder Beats and all these guys, well, the question is, what have you done to actually trade off for that position? Metro Boomin was getting driven all the way down to Atlanta from his state. I forget exactly what state it was, to go gain opportunity because he knew the laws of probability. He applied the laws of probability into his favor. He's using the keys of the universe to get exactly what he desires, but he's willing to trade off for that specific thing. Most people don't want to trade off anything. They want to receive, and never give anything. So in the beginning, you have to give. There has to be a priming of the pump. There has to be an initiation of transaction of the trade-off on the universal energy level. Okay. Now from here, again, a lot of people are taught the secret and the manifestation and all this, everything's going to be given unto you. Well, you haven't even followed the first laws of the universe, which is an object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. How is this $1 million going to come to you if it doesn't get moved by something? Okay, so you're already breaking the laws of the universe, just believing that stuff is just going to happen to you just because. You have to have a trade-off. Even in the Bible, when it talks about faith without works is dead. You know why? Because confidence has to have a history, a transactional log, meaning that the way I build confidence is saying, okay, I set a goal. I walked 2 steps. Okay, I walked 2 steps, met my goal. Boom. That's my transactional history. Then I say, okay, my next goal is to walk 2,000 steps. I go outside on the trail, walk 2,000 steps. Boom. I have another transactional thing that happened that's in my log of history that says, hey guys, I actually believe the goals I set because I've actually done them in the past. Okay. And that creates confidence. So how can you walk in faith without having a transactional history of success? You can't. That's called blind faith. And that's actually a misdefinition of the word faith. To walk, meaning to truly believe in God. Like if you truly say you're Christian, a Muslim, a Jewish folk, a Catholic, a Buddhist, if you truly say, I have faith in a creator, I just follow whatever the creator says because tomorrow I have no idea what's going to happen. I just follow what the creator basically offers to me in that day and I make the best of it. You can't have that belief system until you've reinforced it through previous history. There's no such thing as blind faith. And that's actually a very dangerous concept. Just to say, hey, today I'm saved and magically I just believe that all this good stuff will happen. You have to truly be convicted. A conviction is different than a belief. A belief is on a core level, our subconscious mind has a dictionary, basically. Okay. And if we were to give it a key, what's the value? Meaning if I gave it a word, what is the definition for that word? If I said God, okay, what is the definition for that word? If I said belief, what is the definition for that word? Now, if I say a belief is, you have to think about a system of things. And now we're getting a little kind of geeky. But there's things, conditional code when it comes to coding. There's if this, then this. If the number is 3, then print the number 3. If 3 is greater than 5, that doesn't matter. That doesn't equals. So if X is greater than 5, then print this number X is greater than 5. Okay, there's conditional things. So belief is not only just a definition of God equals good, it's also a system of conditional things. If you were, if the world was about to blow up from a nuclear, fallout, do you believe in God then? Most people would say, yeah, because they have no other option. But if you say, hey, I need to believe in God for me making this basketball shot, most people wouldn't even equate the two, okay, because they're not truly convicted on that conditional level. I know that was a little esoteric. Okay, so forgive me for getting a little too deep on that one. But I guess my point here is that you cannot have a true conviction without a transactional history. Okay, so blind faith is a very dangerous thing because it's based on zero proof. You're going to say there's no transactional history. There's no proof of this thing, but I'm just going to believe it just because. That's actually the most dangerous place to actually be in. Now, faith, true faith, walking, in the faith of the creator is saying that I've succeeded these goals over time, and I believe in the process of the creator. I'm just going to believe in the process. I may be at sample point 1, but I know that there's a sample point 1,000. I know that the sample could go up and it can go down, but I'm going to come back to the center because everything is at balance. So these principles add up is my point. Okay. And again, it starts with priming that pump. You can't think of it like a pool, for example. Imagine you're in an above ground swimming pool. Okay. And you want motion, as people say, momentum. Well, you can't get momentum standing still. An object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. You're not going to get momentum standing there, willing things and thinking you're going to think them into existence. It's not how it works. The universe, think of it like a big swimming pool. You're in the middle of the swimming pool. Everything's still. Everything is at balance. Now, when you start moving forward in the swimming pool, what happens? You create a little trail of water behind you. And if you stop, that trail of water hits you in the back and you go, wow, I have caused change. That is proof that I have changed the system of balance. That's what the transactional history is. It's proof that you have changed the system of balance. So now I'm walking forward, okay? And now I feel that stream of water on my back. But if I stop, the stream hits my back and then it dies out. It fades. It goes right back to stillness. That's what most people see. They walk a little bit, they see a little success, and then they stop. They stagnate, okay? So what our job is to do is keep walking from the middle of the pool. Okay, and then we're going to get confidence because we feel the stream on our back. But what happens if you hit the edge of the pool? You stop and you feel the stream on your back. That's confidence to keep going. It's proof to show you that what you're doing is actually changing an outcome. That's confidence to keep going. Now we hit the edge of the pool. This is where we get confused. This is where we have to learn something new. This is where we have to be learnable. We have to be teachable, to expand, okay, that metaphorical drain that I talked about. So now if you have been in an above ground pool before that's circular, you walk to the edge of the pool. Okay, you feel the thing on your back. Most people stop when they hit the wall. They have some obstacle, they have some enemy, they have something that holds them back, some unknowingness. Okay, so from this point, when you hit the edge of the pool, our job is to walk around the edge of the pool in a circular fashion. Now, for those who have done this as a kid, you keep walking and walking around the edge of the pool. You keep doing it enough, it creates a whirlpool where it carries you. That's called momentum. You can't create momentum from the center of the pool. There's no such thing as momentum that leads you to the edge of the pool, because now there's an endpoint. When you get to the first obstacle and you adapt and you change and you become teachable, okay, this is where most people kind of fail again. Then you go around the edge of the pool and you keep doing it and reinforcing the same behavior, believing in the process because you've done it before. That's what faith actually means, and it requires work, okay? So now we're on the edge of the pool. We keep going in circular fashion, then the whirlpool carries you. And that's where we consider this called wealth, where something carries you from all your work in the past. Okay, it adds up and it carries you for however long. Now, the law of physics, the whirlpool's not going to keep going forever and ever and ever. Okay, it's not going to keep going forever and ever. But my point is, it carries you at that point. But you had to prime the pump. You had to start at the pool in the beginning. You had to walk to the edge. You had to believe in yourself because you saw that you created change. You had to adapt because you ran into an obstacle. This is called the hero's journey, by the way. You walk around the edge of the pool. Okay, you keep going in the process. This is called faith because you believe that eventually momentum will happen. You don't see momentum currently because you're not on sample number 100 yet. You're on sample 50, sample point 50, tick number 50. So we got to keep going until we get to sample number 100 to see the actual total change on a greater amplitude. Okay, and then when we walk around the edge of the pool, we see what's called momentum, and that's when the principles all add up. In the beginning, we had to prime the pump to walk to the edge. At the edge, we had to expand our drain. Okay, we had to swap out the dirt that didn't work for fertilizer. Then we went around the whirlpool. We kept going. This is called faith with works. You keep following the process until you get to the whirlpool that creates momentum for you. So that is how you advance. Hopefully, if you guys are stuck, you can learn more. If you like these podcasts, just subscribe. I want to thank you guys for grabbing all the free stuff. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/sampler. Peace out, guys. Oh, also, I have a thing called the Producer Bible. My goal in life is very simple. 3 things I was told: show love, be filled with the spirit of truth, and complete your assignment. My assignment specifically is to give Bibles. Bibles cost me $15 on average to send around the world. That's very expensive. So I would need $1.5 billion to give away 100 million Bibles a year, which is my ultimate goal. That costs a lot of money. So I don't have $1.5 billion. So another way I do this is I give away a book called The Producer Bible. And what it does is it reframes the mindsets from the Bibles and the parable and makes them more modern for us as music producers and music creatives. So go to busyworksbeats.com/book. It is completely free and it will transform your mindset. All right, guys, subscribe if you're new, share with a friend. Peace.